Hail and well met. Welcome to another one of my videos. This video will be focusing on world building, but in an approachable format for new DMs, hoping to design their own worlds for their D&D and RPG campaigns. Like many of my videos, this will be mostly unscripted, though the beginning will be, just so I can get my thoughts in order. So, I've been DMing and running other games for about 6 years now, and I haven't felt the drive to create my own world before until very recently. There's a multitude of other things and settings and worlds that others have already made, and I've always found that to be a big hurdle for me to kind of get over that fact. And I'm always thinking, why make a fictional world when there are other better ones that are already there? But I should have been asking myself, what makes mine special and unique for me? Because when it boils down to it, I'm not trying to sell this thing or write a book with it. I'm just using it for my own purposes, for having fun with my friends. So, crafting your own world can feel pretty daunting at first, but always keep in mind what you're going to use it for. Don't put too much pressure on yourself. There's no deadline, and you can change things as much as you need. You can even leave some spaces blank. It's fine. So I'm going to walk through the process of beginning world building by talking about what I experienced when I was first starting to write my own, what I initially wrote to get started, and then how things have kind of progressed from that point. So without further ado, I am often inspired by the media that I consume. A lot of people are, but it's usually whatever I'm into most recently, and that has been rewatching Game of Thrones and listening to the Mistborn series by Brandon Sanderson. I found these two are kind of basically my put together for my world. I've taken bits and pieces of both to kind of make mine into my own. A lot of the language and words that I will use are from their works already, but it'll probably change just for the sake of, I don't know, it makes me feel better about it, but I'm basically ripping off their stuff, but I'm not going to take it and try to sell it as my own. I recognize it is their stuff, but I'm going to take it and kind of put a different spin on it. And so that's kind of where my starting point was, because I was like, these are both really awesome awesome worlds and things, and I like aspects of both of them equally. But from there, I had to have like a basis of knowledge on how to kind of go through things and how things should be kind of put together. So I wasn't really starting from nothing. I've watched a lot of, let's see if I can get this to work. I've watched a lot of Matt Colville's videos. I found him to be my most inspirational person to view. I don't know why my mouse is not showing up. That's odd. There we go. And I've really enjoyed his stuff, particularly the running the game. I would basically watch these as they were released while I was learning to DM, and so they've really helped a lot. He's also had some world building videos where he made a collective world with viewers on Twitch, which was really cool. And also the ones that he's doing for the Chain of Acheron, which is really sweet. But anyway, highly recommend. There's a couple other YouTubers that I will link in the description afterwards that I would recommend checking out. But for now, he used the main drive before what I've been doing. Anyway, let's see. So I had an idea, and that was to kind of combine aspects of each of those worlds that I referenced earlier. And my initial idea was that I wanted like a big world with kingdoms and empires, and that had a rich history that kind of made sense. I wanted things to be consistent in how they were developed. It wouldn't just be like, oh, this is here because magic. Ugh. Like, I wanted to have reasoning behind it, and I wanted to kind of work through that thought process on my own to see how other writers have done it. Just for fun. Like, I thought it would be interesting. So yeah, I wanted the history to inform the cultures that developed from the land and the geography, and also from the magical aspect of things. But I wanted it to be like grounded in somewhat reality, sort of. And so this time I went with a top-down approach. when typically I'd go from the bottom up. And to explain what these mean is that the top-down approach means that you're going to design the world from a macro scale. So you start with either the planet or the continents, the cosmology, and the deities, and you go down and you keep going down, down, down until you get to kingdoms and religions and biomes of the world, and you keep going from there. The bottom-up approach is the opposite. You typically start with maybe like a small town, a village, a city even, that your campaign is going to start in, and then you build out the buildings and the people and the NPCs and the small details that are there. And that's kind of how you develop from there. And then if your players want to go, oh, let's go here, then you just, you build that other small part. You kind of start from the small and you go to the large afterwards. Each of them has their pros and cons. I found a great article that describes and talks about them that I will link in the description later that you can check out, but that's basically the gist of them. So, with my idea, where's my pictures? So, my idea was that, just for minor spoilers for any Brandon Sanderson novel stuff here, he basically has these things called shards, and they're shards of something. I don't know. I didn't want to read too much into it because I didn't want to spoil too much for myself. But basically, they are beings of intent, where they each have a specific ideology that they would focus on, be it honor, or devotion, or ambition, or dominion. And I kind of wanted to take that idea. Generally, in his worlds, they are each on their own planet. There's maybe 2 or 3 on a planet. I wanted to see what would happen if they were all on one, and how that would cause the different cultures and people that would be inhabiting that place to kind of react to that, and how things would develop from there over a long period of time. And I also just like artwork with big crystals sticking out of the ground, because I really like that idea, and I just wanted to have reasons for players to visit ancient locations that are giant crystals sticking out of the ground, and they're mysterious and wondrous and things like that. I just wanted to experience that and create something like that for my players that I'd be running through adventures here. So with that, I basically will show you what I did. So from that initial idea, I just started writing things down. I kind of go on a whim. Whenever I get the feeling and the urge to put something to writing, I just put it out there and I get it down as fast as I can before it slips away in my various other thoughts throughout the day. So the world wasn't named initially. I kind of came up with the name from Google Translate, which is a lot of where a lot of my other names come from. And so to kind of briefly go over the history, I thought of a plausible scientific way that this would happen is that this crystalline object crashed into a planet when it was being formed, and it kind of got made. And then the story behind it, that this story is kind of like as if a person in that world was describing like the past, so they were talking about the history as like a storyline. And so there's 10 total shards that represent personality and intent, and they were kind of combined all together in like super suits of power, and they would fight each other. And so that's kind of how they crashed and exploded into these planets. So at the forming of the world, each crystal formed a singular archon, so there's the crystal, and then each of them formed this godlike being. And each of them exemplified one of these aspects, which are from Brandon Sanderson stuff. I'll probably adjust them slightly, and I've kind of taken my liberties with them. But I thought that was a really great idea, and I just wanted to kind of explore that a little bit. So from there, they created their firstborn offspring, and things kind of progressed from there as they created more offspring, and they kind of settled. Some were at odds and some were agreeable. So some of them worked together, some of them were opposites. But I wasn't sure where exactly they would be, like physically. So once I kind of determined what they were, and kind of put a brief description of each of them, so this is what devotion is, blah blah blah, preservation, ruin, odium, honor. So I kind of took what he had written, and what other people have found from his works, changed them a little bit, and kind of decided upon what they were. I also at this time was kind of determining like how the history would progress. So there's the origin, and then there's the firstborn when they would first emerge from the crystals. Then there was the Age of Strife when they kind of battled and fought for land. And then there's the offspring, which were like their direct descendants. And kind of where they would combine and create the 5 or 6 primary cultures of the world. And I also thought of like different ages of where things would happen. So in this area is where things have started to slow down. All the kingdoms are more like your typical like fantasy kingdoms and empires, and they're kind of doing their thing. And I just thought of things that would be like areas of conflict, because you can't really have a world that is just completely peaceful and there's nothing wrong. There has to be some sort of conflict that is happening there. Otherwise, it's kind of boring. So for example, well, I'll go into this in a little bit. Blah, blah, blah. So yeah, they kind of just happened. But the main thing, once I figured out what they were, I had to figure out like physically where they were in the world. And so I used this great website called Asgar's Fantasy Map Generator. And it's really cool, really awesome tool. There's lots and lots of options for different fantasy maps you can get. Let's see if I just click new map. Sure. And it'll just give you a really cool fantasy map, and you can customize the shapes. This looks more like a large island with some sort of volcanic activity in the middle, and so it just makes a great physical space for you to work with. And it also like automatically figures out, because I've always had trouble with that, where the heck do rivers and mountains go, and it kind of automatically figures out where those would be, which is super handy. It takes a lot of the work out of creating a map, especially for people that are not artistic. Anyway, so with that, I created a map. There we go. So this is the 2 continents that I kind of am working with for now. And like I said earlier, things can change. Things don't have to be completely written in stone. And so what I did, I lost a picture. I thought I had taken a picture of it with my phone. But what I did is I had 10d10. One for each of the archons that I had written about earlier. And I just like threw them at the printed out map. And I kind of rearranged them where they kind of landed so that there was 5 on each of them. And so what that gave me is this. And so I kind of photoshopped them onto the map itself and kind of determined where they were. So once I figured that out, then I could kind of work through and think about who would be working with who. And I did this while I was at work, so I kind of just scratched on a piece of paper, which you will see very soon, where they kind of interacted with one another. And you'll see. And so it turned into this. So there is some similarities from the other map, but I kind of just had to draw it from memory. And so I placed the numbered archons and shards where they were, and then I kind of just doodled where I thought borders would be based on natural formations and waterways and things like that, and as kind of a working spot. And with this then, I kind of figured out, okay, so devotion and odium are kind of like, this is like wrath and powerful emotions, and this is like devotion to that ideal. And so, okay, they're probably religious zealots of some kind. I just kind of thought of like an archetypal like culture or like kingdom. Honor probably was chilling up here by themselves. Ruin has a like desert place that I thought of would be called the Rune Wastes. So people would be able to figure, okay, that's where there's a wastes and there's lots of like rampant magic and destructive forces. But they wouldn't know exactly what was there. It's just, it's there. Then there's ambition, which is like another kingdom who I thought would be taking over with their ambition, would make a vassal out of the endowment society, which makes sense that they become like some sort of magical sort of faction of some kind. And there's the other ones that I could go through, but I'm just going to leave them for the time being. And then so that's just kind of how things naturally progressed through. And I'm still like slowly chipping away at things. But that's just one example of how you can kind of go from a type of media or things that you enjoy and appreciate, and you can kind of twist them and change them and kind of make them your own. And this wasn't all done in one day, mind you. This is done over the course of many hours. But it's getting to the point where I can kind of hold off and wait and maybe run a few games in it and kind of explore what other people think, because you don't always have to just make it on your own. You can certainly have input from your players and your friends and see what they have to say, because other people have totally different ideas from what you have. And I think it'll be a great experience to be able to see what other people would think that would happen with this. And so with that, this is my first foray into a world building video. I hope it wasn't too rambly. Otherwise, yeah, I hope you've enjoyed it. Please let me know if you have any questions in the comments. Like the video, share it around. As well, I think I hit 400 subscribers just today, which is super cool, so I super appreciate that. I'm always looking at my phone and seeing when somebody has checked it out, so I really appreciate that a lot. So have yourselves a wonderful day, and take it easy.